Hey everyone, Bryan here, and back for another episode of the podcast. Today, I'm going to dive into something that we've been working on quite a bit, and how are you aligning what you're doing with things like ChatGPT and Claude, the tools that are out there, and how you need to structure them, thinking about what it means to give them the tool and say, hey, go figure it out, versus here's the tool and it already pre-answers the question for you. And so I'm rereading a Dan Kennedy book, and he mentions along the lines of like you don't want your salespeople doing prospecting. You want your salespeople in front of clients. Or another way of saying it is that your highly paid people shouldn't be digging for gold. They should be refining it. And I was thinking about how that plays out with how it's happening today in the world. Hey, if you're a great business owner, CEO, you're using some AI-based tool, unless you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years. You don't know how to use it. You don't know where to use it. You're not sure if it applies to your business. I'm here to tell you it applies in all parts of your business. You just have not discovered it yet. So you're looking for the most efficient way to do it. And you want to find your ways. Like if you use Dan's concept of prospectors digging for gold, you don't want them digging for gold, right? That would be them using ChatGPT or Claude, whatever, to go find the information. But you want them to be refining and creating systemic value for you, your business, and more importantly, all of our clients together. Because if you think about it, how I like to think about it is if you install these systems so that your business generates opportunity predictably. We've talked about that over and over again, and not random acts of whatever. And as we talk to clients all the time, they're always like, so-and-so came up with a great thing, but it's not systemic, it's not in their brand voice, it's not in their outputted format, it doesn't know enough about the same knowledge, it can't be shared amongst your team, all that other stuff. So I want you to work on these ideas as we go through this podcast today. All right, so first reason, well, guess what, I kind of alluded to it before. You eliminate random acts of marketing. So today you all get the emails, I'm going to let you use AI to get 10,000 leads overnight without doing any work at all. Well, that's crazy. I'm sure it works for the opportunity seekers, but for the vast majority of us in the B2B world, it may generate a short-term spike in activity, but it doesn't necessarily achieve a long-term breadth of business that we can build it on. So if you want to focus on that, this is not the place. But if you want to find 100 or so highly effective contacts and leads, that they are fantastic, right? So that's how you do it. When we talk about random acts of marketing, you go to chat, you say, hey, I want to post that I'm doing X, Y, or Z, and then it comes up with some post. It decides that you sound like everybody else, and that's not how we should do it. What we should have is a consistent brand voice that's a marketing expert for usage on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has a certain language it likes to use. It wants to feel natural. It wants to feel natural voice. It should be attached with a video like this one, because authenticity is increasingly more and more of the currency of today. So much AI stuff is happening that is inauthentic, that causes a lot of pushback. You don't need to do that. Say it out loud, get on camera. I get it, we don't like how we look on camera, but turn it in and then use AI to turn it into all the other things that need to happen. Those structured prompts are the ones that allow you to create consistent brand voice and format. Our number one prompt that we let our clients use is the simple, I call it the newsletter strategy. It's one thing, something interesting that happened to you personally, something that happened in your community, and something that happened in your industry. Write a short, simple 2 or 3 or 5, maybe a 2 or 3 sentence per area that shares what's going on with you in your world, and voila, you have a newsletter. So if you think about, in my world, I live in Naples, there's always great stuff going on, there's always wonderful things going on in the communities, and I'm always, doing interesting things in the business, going to events, talking to people, so on and so forth. So now all of a sudden, people identify with getting to know and remember Bryan, as opposed to whatever ChatGPT it knows about Bryan, or the other Bryan Durkin, the former chairman of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. So you don't have to worry about that. The second thing I want you to think about is, how do you move your team from these so-called prospectors trying to figure out, look over here, look over there, look over here, look over everywhere, but they become operators, right? So when you have even simple shared prompts that you use with people, you stop guessing prompts, you start rewriting outputs, you stop wasting time when they use these custom BT, the thinking you've already built in is already embedded in the system. The voice is defined and the structure is proven so that they don't have to figure stuff out for. I do this all the time with my team. As you guys know, I have a team of people all over the world that do stuff for clients. We have an amazing business doing this, and the voice of company 1 versus company 2 versus company 3 versus company 4 are completely different. So for us to go to an unstructured chat system for those completions, we would spend all of our time trying to figure out how to make it sound like this person or that person or that person. By predefining what they sound like, by making it sound like them from a recording or a podcast or a training or some conversations you've had with them, there's a million ways to do that. That system is proven, and make sure you do that, right? The other thing that happens when you do, right, you create structure, you create your persona, is you protect your brand. Now, I'm not, as you guys that know me, I'm not a huge brand person. This is not Coca-Cola. We don't do things that big dumb companies do. But we need to make sure that your voice is authentic and sounds like you. When I am sharing content and when I am delivering my emails to my newsletter list, or I'm doing other stuff, people are always act like, well, Bryan, that sounds like you. Well, because it is me, because it has all this work to be trained on. So that's important. But now all of a sudden is my email specialist can write emails like Bryan. My social media person can write social like Bryan. My white paper writer, if I did white papers, would sound like Bryan, because they all become the extension of Bryan, because the tone shifts constantly if you don't do it, and the message shifts. But if you do this, the voice stays intact, right? So you're using the words you use, and you're using the acronyms you use in your business, or they're understanding what the goal is, and then more importantly, they're understanding who your customer is, right? So another huge point. That one's fantastically powerful. If you do nothing else, make sure you do that. The next thing we want to talk about is that I see this every day. I was on a call, quite honestly, on Friday with a group of folks that were talking to their sales team about how they're using AI. And while I applaud the fact, this small sales team, I think it's only 2 or 3 people, that they were using chats, but they were like, hey, just write me something, right? Instead of saying, hey, we're launching a new product to our Southeastern customers that are going to be focused around an event that they know about. Can you write a 3-step sequence of emails for me to do that, and then help me with the ideation for the creative copy so that I can hand it off to my creative team to make a brochure that I can have out at the event? That is completely distant. So it goes from being like this cool gee whiz thing, and to be honest with you, I use it on weekends. I want to know how to water my vincas and what my Florida impatiens should look like and that kind of stuff. But now all of a sudden we're leveraging a system of operations that can make our business more consistent, more scalable, because they handle the repetitive stuff. I tell my people all the time, listen, if your job is copy pastes, putting from one system to another system, if you haven't, you should be looking over your shoulder, because I'm going to learn how to create, how to use chat completions, how to create agentics and agentic workflows, and all those other cool things that happen to make that obsolete. So make it understand that, it's a system. Again, always think about what you can do and how you can figure out ways to make it more consistent. The one next thing I want to talk about is decision fatigue. Although this is different than AI fatigue, which I will talk about on another episode, which I think I have sometimes, quite honestly, because when you use unstructured AI, you get so many choices. Oh, and then as of this recording, it's always like, oh, by the way, I can do these 10 other things for you. No, I didn't ask for that, right? So when you use structured AI prompts and custom GPTs and personas and whatever you want to call them, you get all these choices. But if the framework of the weekly status email that you're sending to your service customers are, 1, 2, and 3 all come from the same thing. They're coming from the leadership team. Say they're coming from, I don't know, the service manager. They're coming from the fulfillment team, and they're coming from the owner of the company as those 3 steps. And then the last step would be something personal about what's happening in their world or community, right? Now all of a sudden, that would be incredibly hard to do one at a time. But now all of a sudden, if you create a custom GPT prompt that has all those other things together, and then the last component talks to another system, woo! Now all of a sudden you could never figure you could do that at scale. Wow. Because the reality of it is, if you do something every single day to contact some small segment of your customers, Dan talks about doing one thing every day. He might write one letter. He might buy one Christmas gift. He might buy whatever. I think he does 2 or 3 things every single day. He's been doing over his entire career. And as a result of that, at the end of the week, you got 5, 10, 15 things done. At the end of the month, you got 20, 30 things done. And people realize that you can't do that. Let the tools help you. Don't replace you, but let the tools help you. The next thing I want to talk about, especially for a lot of the small businesses out there, we have customers in all kinds of segments and industries, and we end up running them for them. But you get to scale your expertise without hiring more experts. And this is where there's been a paradigm shift, and we all know it, right? So now all of a sudden, you had a good copywriter, great. You have a great copywriter, copy's great. Now all of a sudden, you have your best business strategist, and you have your best sales thinker, and you have your best sales objection person, right? Because you can deliver strategic thinking. Right now, for pretty much every one of our clients, we've created these generic sales objections that are, you are Zig Ziglar and Jeffrey Gitmer and Dan Kennedy and Gary Halbert, all these great kind of sales and marketing strategists that I follow and I look at. Now all of a sudden you can you can give them your sales objections, and those sales objections you can use them to overcome those sales objections. Aha, Bryan, that's clever. What's even more clever is that we pre-feed the most common objections that you have. Like every sales team on the planet has 10 or 15 objections. You're too expensive. You're too hard to do business with. I don't know. You're two miles out of our service area. It takes you 24 hours to return phone calls. Whatever that is, like you can use those sales objections and preventively put those in front to have strategic copy to stay in front of them. So again, that's an example of having a sales trainer on staff. One of the things we do in our call center business, every one of our callers has objections. So we take systemically every week each call that's over, I think, 4 minutes in length. It gets a transcription, and that transcription gets applied to an engine. That engine says, okay, give me your transcript. Decide what you need to do, decide what you do well or not well based upon those customers' criterias, and then help rank me and help me understand what I could do better as a caller. So in the call center business, the old days, your supervisor would listen to your calls, pick a handful of them out, and then do a one-on-one with you. What would take hours now takes minutes, and it's also taken out the human, Joe doesn't like Mary, Bryan doesn't like Fred. All of a sudden they become objective because we have issues with you're not clearly stating the offer. You're not confirming that they're already a customer or not, or you're not confirming the last time you placed an order for products or services. So if those are the objectives, the AI will be smart enough to know, hey, did they do their job? Okay, so again, you're hiring all these expertise. I gave you 3 golden ones today, right? 3 golden ones here. Sales objections, sales call operations or sales operations, and marketing. Those 3 things, if you do take nothing away, learn how to build those 3 components because they will save you so much time and effort. I laugh. I don't laugh, I cry. So many people hire a recent college grad. No knocks against college grads. And then every business they get to, they want to create TikTok ads. Because why? They're on TikTok. Well, guess what? If their customer's not on TikTok, that doesn't help you. Now, if your customer is on TikTok, then by all means, do TikTok ads. But guess what? It's just media. They're going to be on TikTok. They're going to be on LinkedIn. They're going to be on Instagram. They're going to be on Facebook. They're going to be on MySpace. They're going to be on his space. They're going to be on their space. Whatever the media is, they're going to be on it. And the more you use these spaces, the more you realize you got to have your own list because then it doesn't matter. You got to know where they live, you got to know where their office is, and you got to know their business and home email, whichever one applies to your business. That's what you need to do because you can't clone people, but you can clone systems. So that's how you scale, right? And then the last thing, really, once you do all this, you have, and if you've read my book, we talk about the game plan. This is really an essence of the modern day game plan. You're not just going to, hey, we're going to wing it. So you're going to be the king of wing. I had a guy that worked for me. Actually, I worked for him and then we worked together. He was the king of wing. He said, Bryan, just put me anywhere. I'll sell whatever you want to do. In those days, while it's still helpful to have those creative sales skills to do that. It's so much harder because you don't have to do that. And for that one person, there might be 10,000 who are not that way. I'm very comfortable in those scenarios doing that. I understand how business works. I understand how my clients work. So I could probably be on half of their sales calls and move it to the next step because I understand how to read them, decide if they're engaged buyers, if they're putting all the buy signals together, and then moving on to the next step. But not everybody can do that. So by using chat without random chats, you don't have a game plan. You are just literally just winging it. So like I said, if you don't have a plan, what do they say? If you have no plan at all, then you're planning to fail. So again, let's talk about this again. Wrapping up. Custom GPTs are your playbook. They're all the things you need to do. They allow you to scale without really being experts in the field. And you can ask it to help you become an expert. Why is that important? Because that makes sure everyone on your team is following the same ideas, the same philosophies, and more importantly, creating the same output and customer experience to the customer. There is a reason why when you walk into Chick-fil-A, it is my pleasure to help you. I've been going to Disney a lot recently, as you've seen if you follow me on social. My wife and I, Pam and I, we decided to give ourselves Disney passes this year. And when you walk in, you say, "Hello, my friend, how can I help you?" And they lean in and look at you in the eyes, just like I'm doing right now for those of you who are watching. I think that is such a fantastic use of understanding how the playbook is played, to use those words. But if you're not doing that on a consistent basis, you can't teach that. Sales objections the same way, follow-ups from calls, onboarding clients, service call follow-ups, whatever the systems are, by documenting them, right? And then using these custom tools to help you do that. So anyway, I hope that helps. I always get a little bit of Dan Kennedy in my day, and so Dan kind of inspired me. I was on a call last week with a bunch of Dan Kennedy guys, and we were talking about how Dan still doesn't like random acts of marketing and how that systems rule, and all of his things that he talks about his ruthless management of people and profits, and he talks about his renegade millionaire concepts and his renegade millionaire products. Those things are incredibly powerful and incredibly truthful, and now they just apply even more because no matter the size of your business, you have the ability to learn or hire out those skills and how to do that. So, hey, if there's any way I can help you by means, reach out to me through the link in the podcast, and I will be sure to do what I can to help you out. And you guys have an amazing day. Thank you for spending some time with me, and I got to get back to doing some custom GPTs for some clients. See ya.